Welcome to all.
I'm going to share my screen here. Basically, my name is Pete Wilson. I'm from Alpena Agency, as Sue mentioned. I've been in the insurance business since 1995 when I moved to Alpena, and my brother and I purchased the agency from my father. And prior to that, it was my grandfather. So we've been in the insurance business for quite a few years. This is by far the biggest change we've seen in the insurance business since I've been in it, and probably in the last 40 years. So I think it's really important that people get an understanding of what the changes are and what their decisions are so they can make the right choices for themselves going forward. I'm going to go through the slideshow here. Basically, the intention of this is to give you an overview of the changes to Michigan no-fault auto reform. I'm not going to try to cover every detail. We've been going to seminars about this since about October. So there's definitely a lot of changes. It can be confusing. I'm going to try to make it manageable. What I would suggest is that for details about your own policy, you need to ask your agent. So each insurance, the underlying rules are the same from one insurance company to another as far as the coverage goes, but how they're implementing the coverages and what options they're allowing you to take, whether you can take an early renewal or you have to wait till renewal, or what paperwork you need to going to set in exactly, might differ a little bit from company to company. I am going to stop periodically as we go along here to answer questions. Just be careful, that your question's a little generic, because if we get too bogged down in everyone's individual circumstances, it can get very confusing for people. There is going to be a great opportunity to save money with this change, but when you're doing that, you're also reducing coverage in most instances. So you're going to really need to consider your options closely when you look at this stuff, and you'll want to talk to your agents to make sure you understand them. These changes go into effect for policies that renew after July 1st. So if you have a renewal in July or August, you may have already received some of this paperwork, and you'll have some familiarity with it. However, even if your renewal is in October, November, December, most insurance companies are going to allow you to take an early renewal effective July 2nd and take advantage of some of these changes and savings that are available. You could renew early, but again, it's a little bit dependent on the companies. So this gives you an idea of some of the headlines we've been seeing, although most of the headlines lately have not been about Michigan no-fault auto reform, but nonetheless, this is sort of what's been happening when the law was passed last summer. So let me just give you a little bit of history on this. So first of all, prior to 1973, Michigan was an at-fault state. And what that meant was that whoever was at fault was responsible for the other person's damages. So if you got in a car accident, determining who was at fault was a big deal. And as a result, there was a lot of lawsuits that resulted to determine who's at fault and who should pay for what. And this was causing the insurance rates in Michigan to skyrocket. So that's where the legislator stepped in and said, let's implement this no-fault law where we don't have to determine who's at fault. Everyone's insurance pays for their own car and their own injuries. And the only time we would allow lawsuits between accident participants would be if there was involving severe injury, disfigurement, or death. So if it was anything less than that, they would not need to sue the other party. One of the key components to that idea of no-fault insurance was to deal with people that were injured in auto accidents. Who's going to pay the medical bills? What they implemented then was this unlimited medical coverage feature that if you were injured in an auto accident, your injuries were going to be paid for unlimited by your auto policy. And that eliminated a lot of reasons to sue the other driver because your injuries were going to get paid for. Now, what happened was, this slide is really important because what you can see is Michigan no fault ended up with the highest medical coverage of any state in the country. And that's how this looks today. So Michigan, you can see at the top of my list, has unlimited medical right now. The next highest company or country state is New Jersey with 250,000. And you can see how quickly it goes down from there. And if I go all the way down and you look in Florida, kind of in the middle of the page, it's 10,000. So in Florida, if you're in an accident and you're hurt, the most your auto is going to pay is 10,000. So when we're talking about these changes in PIP coverage in the different options you have available, just keep this in mind, that how different Michigan is than the rest of the country in terms of limits. The result of this, though, was that Michigan now has the highest auto insurance rates in the country. Nobody pays more than we do. This was the purpose or the reason that there's been all this talk about it and why we've gone to Michigan no-fault auto reform. And this is sort of what happens. You live in Ohio, you pay $1,037 for your car. You live in Michigan, you pay $2,610. This is the situation we're trying to address with this Michigan no-fault auto reform. So let's take a look at the components or the main key changes that took place. Number one was the PIP medical benefits. You'll now have options to pursue different benefits. These are the medical and other benefits that you get if you are injured in an auto accident. The second thing, they implemented a fee schedule for auto accident medical bills. So right now, if you're injured in an auto accident, you pay whatever the customary charge is at the hospital. Unlike Medicare or Blue Cross or Priority Health or any other private insurer that has a fee schedule at the hospital, you need this service, they only pay this amount. With auto insurance, it's customary, it's the full rate. They implemented guaranteed PIP premium reductions. So part of the idea here was, if they're going to allow insurance companies to offer these options of lower coverage, then they want to guarantee that Michigan residents are going to actually see a premium reduction. They changed the order of PIP, order of priority. What this means is, when someone's injured in an auto accident, there's a list of who's going to pay and when. And they changed that order a little bit. New bodily injury liability limit requirements. Don't confuse bodily injury with personal injury protection, or PIP as it's often referred to. Personal injury protection, or PIP, is for you, if you're the injured person, to pay your direct medical bills. Bodily injury is your limit that if the other guy sues you, that's your protection, and that's what you would willing to settle for, or how much your insurance policy will pay the other person if they claim their injuries are severe enough to sue. So there's personal injury protection, which is for your own medical benefits. Bodily injury is if you hurt someone else and they sue you. So the big change, this is the most important part of this presentation, and I'm going to spend the most time on this, but this is the most important part. I'm seeing a little yellow crayon here, and I don't know where that came from, but that's not on my slide. Anyway, so here's the options that are available on your PIP policy, on your auto policy for PIP coverage. This is the biggest part of the change. So what is personal injury protection? Again, this is the part that's going to pay your medical bills. You have an auto policy, you're injured. Personal injury protection is what pays your hospital bills, your office visits, and everything related to those injuries. And there's 4 components to personal injury protection. Component 1, allowable expenses. These are your medical expenses, such as the surgeries and office visits, attendant care, If you're hurt bad enough and you end up in nursing care, this auto policy would pay for that. Accommodations, if you're in a wheelchair and you needed a ramp built in your home, the auto policy would pay. Rehabilitation, special transport, if you needed your car modified, the auto policy would pay for that. Mileage to and from the doctor, guardian expenses if you needed to have a guardian assigned to you because you couldn't take care of yourself, and funeral expenses. These are all part of allowable expenses that are paid for by your auto policy if you're injured in an auto accident. These are the expenses that you are going to be able to pick a different limit for other than unlimited. Now, the next three are always going to be in place no matter what you choose on your auto policy. So these are in place now and they are not changing. Work loss benefits, survivor benefits, and replacement services. If you're injured in an auto accident, they're going to pay up to 3 years of your lost wage. If you're killed, they'll pay your survivors a certain amount of benefits. Or if you can't do your daily chores like mowing the lawn or cutting your household chores, they would pay someone to come in to do that, up to $20 a day. Those are not changing. Only number one is the one we're talking about, where these options are going to apply. So what are your options now? So going forward, you're going to have 6 options. Right now you have unlimited, and you'll be able to keep that. So unlimited means unlimited allowable expenses. So that's your medical care, your accommodations, your nursing care, those type of things. Number 2 is 500,000. So instead of having unlimited allowable expenses, you could have 500,000 or 250. Number 3, on down the list. Now I'm going to go through each one of these individually. So let's take a look at them. So as I mentioned, unlimited, same coverage as you have now. You don't have to do anything. You can stay right where you're at. Number 2, you could pick the $500,000 limit. As I mentioned, allowable expenses are going to be capped at $500,000. You get injured in an auto accident, the auto policy is going to pay up to $500,000 for you to go to the doctor or the hospital, etc. But once you reach the $500,000, it stops, and then you would have to rely on your other coverage, such as Medicare or Blue Cross, etc. This can still be coordinated benefits, meaning the auto would pay some of the bills and your Blue Cross or Medicare, Blue Cross would pay some of the bills. You can't coordinate with Medicare. Option 3, $250,000. These are the 3 easy options. 1, 2, or 3. You have unlimited, 500, or 250. Pretty straightforward. Option 4 is where it's going to get a little more complicated. If you are on Blue Cross or Priority Health or Aetna or one of these other private insurance carriers, you could opt out completely and have no medical coverage with your auto policy. So if you're a named insured or a resident relative and you have what we call a qualified health care, if you look at the bottom of my slide there, it says a qualified health care is private insurance that does not limit or exclude medical benefits from an auto accident and has a deductible of $6,000 or less. It also includes Medicare with parts A and B. So if you have Blue Cross, you could pick this $250,000 limit, and then you turn around and exclude yourself by signing a form saying, I don't want any medical benefits if I'm injured in an accident. I'll rely on my private insurance. Option number 5 is if you're on Medicaid, you can pick $50,000. And option number 6 is if you are on Medicare. So option number 6 would be applicable to a lot of you on this webinar. What it says, if you and your spouse are named insured on the policy and you both have Medicare A and B, then you can choose to opt out completely and have no medical coverage from the auto policy. You get in an auto accident, Medicare is going to pay, just like they're going to pay if anything else happens to you. The same co-pays, same deductibles, same coverage, same limits of coverage. So if you're injured in an auto accident, you're on Medicare, Medicare is going to pay for your surgeries and your office visits, etc. Now, Medicare doesn't really pay for nursing care. And there's limits on its rehabilitation care. So whatever limits you have on your Medicare now would follow you to the auto. But at the same token, if you're comfortable with your Medicare coverage now in case you have a stroke or you fall down the stairs or you have a heart attack, the same policy, same limits, same coverage is going to apply to an auto accident. It wouldn't change. So when I look at these 6 options, this is what they are. 1, 2, and 3 are simple. Unlimited, 500, or 250. So let's say you're on Medicare. You choose the $500,000 limit. You get in an auto accident. The auto policy is going to pay 100% of all your medical expenses until the $500,000 is gone. So if that's surgeries, and then you have office visits, and you end up in nursing care for a year, whatever it might be, auto pays. When the $500,000 is exhausted, then you go back to Medicare, and Medicare would pay the rest with copays, deductibles, and whatever coverage limitations you have. A little bit of additional information. All of you are going to get a packet in the mail from your insurance company, and it's going to have 4 pages in it. And in those 4 pages, you need to decide what choice you want to make. Unlimited, 500, 250, do you want to opt out? You have to sign that form and turn it in each and every renewal unless you want to stay unlimited. If you want to stay unlimited, your policy will renew as unlimited, nothing changes. But if you want to have anything other than unlimited, you have to fill out that form every single year, every single renewal. If you choose to be excluded, and we are seeing, we've been dealing with this for about a month now, and we are seeing a number of people picking to be excluded. Most people, half are staying unlimited, quite a few are picking the 500, and a few are going with the opt-out options. If you choose to opt out, what happens if you choose to opt out of coverage because you have Medicare or Blue Cross, and then you lose that coverage? You have 30 days where the auto policy is going to provide you coverage for that 30 days. After 30 days, you don't have your Blue Cross policy anymore, and you don't have the auto policies has you excluded, you're going to have no coverage. The point being, if you pick one of these excluded options, you need to make sure you call your insurance company if you lose that medical coverage, because there's no fallback position. Second thing to keep in mind, if you choose one of these opt-out options, is let's say you get in an auto accident today and you have Blue Cross and I've opted out. So Blue Cross pays all your medical bills. But 2 years from now, you need another surgery, and that surgery is still related to the original auto accident. That doesn't matter. All that matters is what health insurance coverage you have at the time you need this additional service. Right now, if you get injured in an auto accident today, we're going to pay unlimited medical benefits for the rest of your life, even if you cancel the insurance policy tomorrow. Doesn't matter. It's all driven by the day you got into the accident and who was insuring you at the time. Like any medical coverage, if you choose to rely 100% on your medical coverage, that policy or a policy needs to stay in force in order to help you with your injuries on into the future. Okay, is there any questions before I get into the savings piece on this?
So if you've got any questions, you can unmute your microphone and ask the question. I'll be monitoring that, or you can use the chat function. Do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, who is this?
It's Pam. Can you talk more about how Medicare and the new insurance works? I'm still not real clear on that.
Okay. So Medicare and the auto policy do not coordinate benefits. Okay. So if what Medicare says is if you have the ability to collect benefit for your injury from any other source other than Medicare, you must use that first. Medicare says we're going to pay for your injuries or illnesses, but if you have access to any other insurance, they must pay first. So right now in the state of Michigan, we have unlimited medical. So Medicare always says you have access to unlimited medical due to that auto injury. We're not going to pay a nickel. Go to your auto policy. Going forward, if you choose to opt out of the auto policy, then and you get hurt in an auto injury, you get in an auto accident, get hurt. Medicare is going to say, do you have access to any other medical insurance? And you're going to say, no, I do not. My policy, I opted out. Then Medicare is going to pay just like any other thing that happens to you. No different. It's just another way to end up in the hospital, is the way to look at it.
Okay, but that's only pertaining to the auto accident. Your other Medicare stuff would still be paid. Like if you were ill or something.
Yes.
Okay.
So the Medicare, whatever you have for Medicare is going to pay exactly like it does now. The only choice you're doing with auto insurance is Medicare says, if you can collect on your auto, collect. If you can't collect, then we'll pay. So if you're injured, let's say you picked the $500,000 limit on auto and you have Medicare. Medicare is going to say, if you can collect on your auto, collect. Okay, I can collect. I can collect up to $500,000. So the auto pays and pays and pays and pays until the $500,000 is exhausted. Then auto says, we're not paying anymore. We've reached our limit. Then you can go back to Medicare and say, I no longer have anyone else that's going to pay my medical bills. It's your turn to pay. And then Medicare will pay. So you're always still going to have Medicare in the background.
Am I correct that auto insurance medical pays for many things that Medicare does not?
Correct. The biggest one that the auto is going to pay for that Medicare does not pay for is attendant care. That's the big one. So with Medicare, let's say right now, if someone were to have a stroke and they end up in the nursing care for 2 or 3 years, at a certain point, once you're stabilized, et cetera, and I don't want to get into too many details, but at some point, Medicare is going to stop paying, and then you have to pay the $8,000 a month. That's the big thing as people get older and they end up in nursing care that's so expensive. So if you got into an auto accident and had a brain injury and ended up in nursing care, Medicare is going to apply the same limits and not pay for your attendant care at the nursing home, where the auto policy does pay. So that's a big difference. Doesn't happen very often, but that's a big difference.
Pete,
Also,
I've got some questions that have come up on the chat group that if we can get to those too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we've got a question that if the spouse is on Medicare but the other spouse is not, what are your options?
Yeah, this is one of those that we spent a lot of time talking to insurance companies because it's somewhat confusing the way they've got it worded. Our interpretation and what we're seeing right now is if one of you is on Medicare, one of you is on Blue Cross. It's pretty common, really. If you want to opt out, we can use option 6, and we can opt you out under the Medicare if you have A and B, and then we can opt out your spouse because she has a qualifying health care coverage or he has qualifying health care coverage. So you can still pick option 6 because one of you has Medicare A and B. And the other, but everyone in the household, this is the confusing part, everyone in the household has to have qualifying health care for you to opt out. So let's say your cousin Louie is living with you and he's 44 and has no insurance and doesn't have an auto policy. You can't pick option 6. You can't opt out because he's a live-in relative and he doesn't have a qualified health care coverage. So it can be a little confusing when you talk to your agent because they're not only going to worry about you and your husband or wife, they're looking at you and all live-in relatives. So everyone in the household that's a relative has to fit in this bucket.
Okay. The next question we've got, Pete, is if your policy renews June 30th, does that mean that you've got to wait a year to change to a new type of policy?
No, most companies, what they're going to let you do, you're going to renew June 30th. Then they can cancel and rewrite your policy effective July 2nd. And what most companies are doing is then you would have a policy that goes from July 2nd all the way around to June 30th again. Okay? So if you want to participate in the savings, you can have your policy canceled the 2nd and rewritten, and then it'll allow you to participate in the new law and not wait an entire year.
Okay. The other question we've got is, does Medigap or Medicare Advantage plans have auto exclusions? And if you opt out of the NF coverage, is it possible that you'd be on the hook for anything that Medicare Part A and B won't pay?
Well, that's kind of a double-sided question, but let me put it this way. No Medigaps and no Advantage plans do not exclude car accidents. So if you have a Medigap plan to drive down your deductibles and copays, that will still apply in your auto policy, or your auto accident, I should say. So if you opt out, Medicare A, B, plus the Advantage plan or the Medigap or whatever is all going to be fine. It's all going to apply to you in your auto accident.
Okay. And the last question I've got on the chat group is, if you, for an example, if you only use 300,000 on a 500,000 policy, if you need future care, say 3 years down later, will you still be able to use the rest of that, or will it depend on what insurance you have at the current time?
No, you'll still be using that original amount. So you get in an auto accident today, those all services related to that injury are covered for the rest of your life up to the limit on the policy, and they'll continue to go back to that original bucket.
Okay, great. I've covered the chat questions. Do we have any other questions that anybody wants to ask?
Yes, I do. This is Arliss.
Okay.
I guess you're talking a lot about Medicare and that, but what about if you have a rider such as Blue Cross? Do they not pay any bills towards accidents?
So with Blue Cross and these other private insurance, the vast majority of them are standard policies that pay in the case of an auto accident. However, there is a few, like these large corporations that have self-insured funds, that they have their own policies that Blue Cross administers, so it looks like a Blue Cross policy, but actually the company itself is paying the claims. Those are written, each one's different. So what you need to do if you have a Blue Cross policy is, if it's one of these individual plans, like through Obamacare or something, those pay in an auto accident, no problem. If you're getting it through your employer that has 10 people working for them or 30 people working for them, the Blue Cross is going to pay. But if you're working for an employer that's over 100 people, that policy may or may not pay in the case of an auto accident. And you need to talk to the HR department or the insurance company and get a letter from them that says whether they will pay or not and who's covered. And if you have that, then you can pick option 4 and still opt out of coverage if you want. Or you can always pick the options 1, 2, and 3. But if they're not going to pay in the case of an auto accident, then of course that auto limit would be the maximum you'll receive. And that's something we can't tell you. We don't know every single employer's plan. In general, most of Blue Cross always pays in the case of an auto accident. But these large employer plans are individually written and they have their own rules.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think that covers our questions for right now, Steve, or Pete.
This is Bob Disher. Pete?
Yes, sir.
We have our policy with your Alpena agency, and this is an awful lot to ingest under the circumstances. Stacy is our representative. Is she, and I'm not putting her down, is she as qualified as you are to personally look at our auto insurance and homeowners insurance and give us the direction?
So we've been having a lot of meetings. We started in October with the insurance companies, and then internally we've been having a lot of meetings. So all of our people and most agents are going to be pretty well versed, but Stacy in particular, or anyone here I can tell you is very well versed, because we've spent a lot of time talking about these options and the rules. And you're absolutely right. It's very complicated. And as an insurance person who's been selling insurance for over 25 years, I've spent a lot of time studying this to try to make sure I understand it as completely as I do. But that's why it's so important for you when you get to the paperwork that you call your agent and talk to them, and don't try to digest this all yourself. What I'm hoping with this seminar is we're going to give you guys a basis, but you're going to have to hear this story 2 or 3 times before you really are going to understand it.
Okay. Do we have anybody else? Do we have anybody else that has a question?
I have a question. This is Wanda. What if one of your grandchildren are driving your car and they have an accident? They don't live with you, but they have an accident and they don't have insurance. I mean,
Okay.
or anything like that. Medical.
Let me get to that question in a little bit, because there's going to be a portion of this that's going to talk about the change of priority, who pays when and where. Okay, so let me just finish out this part first, and then we'll get into this who's going to pay when and where in just a minute. Okay, so let me just finish up this here. So what I'm showing you here is a typical declaration page that you'll see that shows your auto policy. And what I want you to note is this area we have circled there where it says personal injury protection, and then right below it, it says MCCA. Those are the 2 components of your medical coverage on your auto policy right now. Those are the 2 things. So all the other rest of that stuff has nothing to do with our discussion right now. All we're concerned about with personal injury protection and MCCA. The personal injury protection is the portion that the insurance company is charging you. The MCCA is the portion that the state of Michigan through their association is charging you. And these 2 combined are what you're paying in order to have medical coverage on your auto policy. In the premium, you're seeing the $199.19 and the $223.76. The $223 is pretty standard amongst every single insurance company, because the state of Michigan is forcing the insurance companies to collect that money for them, where the personal injury protection is unique to everybody's policy and every premium is different. But just keep these 2 in mind, because these are the 2 we're talking about and where you're going to save money on your auto policy. So what is the MCCA? I refer to it as the state of Michigan. It's not. That's not correct. Actually, it is a private nonprofit association whose mission is to pay PIP or medical benefits in excess of $580,000. So when you get hurt in an auto accident, when your bills get over $580,000, the insurance company doesn't pay that money anymore. The MCCA pays. So they take over the claim after $580,000. The insurance company still administers it. They do the paperwork, but they send the bill on to the MCCA, which is a private organization. It's comprised of heads of insurance companies and all this stuff. Not a big deal, but nonetheless, it's not really the state of Michigan, but that's what I'm going to refer it to, because that's the easiest way to understand it. Your auto policy or your auto insurance company then pays the first $580,000. So if you go back to that deck page, there's the personal injury protection charge. That's going to pay the first $580,000 of your injuries. Then the MCCA pays the next all costs beyond $580,000. It's interesting. It's just something to know, because this is going to dictate the premium. Currently, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, there is no medical services fee schedule in the state of Michigan for auto policies. Any of you have had Blue Cross, and you get your explanation of benefits, and it says, oh, you had a surgery, the cost was $78,000. Blue Cross approved $42,000. The hospital accepts $42,000, and that's it. And the hospital has to write off the other $30,000. That's because there's a medical fee schedule that's attached. Medicare is the same way. You get a service at the hospital, Medicare says, we're going to pay X amount of dollars. That's it. They have to accept it. Auto, whatever it is, that full charge they charge, that's what the auto's been paying all those years. So here's an example. I was look at the bottom row there, the MRI. If you're getting an MRI and you're on Medicare, the hospital only gets $484 from Medicare. They can't charge you the difference. They get $484. If you have Blue Cross or Private Health or Aetna or somebody, they might pay $770 for that MRI. But if you have an auto accident, the auto insurance carriers have been paying $3,259, or the MCCA, 4 or 5 times more money. Well, as a result, every auto injury is just way more expensive than any other type of way you end up in the hospital. This is one of the reasons that our auto rates have gone so high. So as part of the auto reform, they said we're going to implement a fee schedule similar to Medicare, and we're going to pay 200% of whatever Medicare pays. So if Medicare was going to pay $454 for the MRI, we'll pay $898. We'll pay double what they pay, but still a lot less than what we've been paying for the last 40 years. So this was a big deal. And there was a lot of fighting about getting this fee schedule because the hospitals were complaining that if they don't get these high fees they've been charging the auto carriers, they're going to lose money and go bankrupt and or need to raise their fees for everyone else. With this one change, just implementing this fee schedule, the MCCA charge that I showed you on that insurance policy earlier, that was $223, is going from $220 to $100. So that cut that fee in half all by itself. So when your policy renews after July 2nd, even if you do nothing and make no change, you're already going to save $120 on this MCCA thing alone because of this fee schedule they implemented. All right, what about the insurance company's piece? What are they going to do with that? So I told you there's 2 components, personal injury protection, MCCA. We talked about the MCCA, now let's talk about the PIP. What's happening there? With PIP, they told the insurance companies, we're not going to let you do a bait and switch, right? We're not going to let you raise your rates and then turn around and give us a discount after the fact. So what we're going to do is we're going to make you use your rates that you had in effect in 2019. Therefore, but in 2019, you had no idea this law was coming, and you had standard rates, and those are the rates you have to use as your base rates going forward. And in fact, you can't even raise those rates now for the next 8 years. Then we're going to apply, you have to apply these average rate reductions. Now, the key word here is average. So all of you individually, let's say in Northern Michigan particularly, we may have been paying lower PIP rates already compared to, say, the city of Detroit. So if they lower theirs 12% and lower ours 3%, it might still average the 10%. Okay, so these are averages throughout the whole state, not just your own policy. But nonetheless, when your policy renews, the PIP coverage and the MCCA combined have to be at least 10% less than you paid before. And if you choose $500,000, it's going to be 20%. If you choose the $250,000, it's going to be 35%. If you're on Medicaid, it would be 45%. Or if you opt out completely, 100%. So that's the guaranteed savings that are built in. Now, they're all unique to each individual policy and insurance company. So I can't sit here and tell you, oh, Mary, you're going to save $180, Bob's $20, someone else is $500. We're seeing savings. I mean, we've had people save over $1,000 with this. We've had people save $100. It's all over the map. Also, keep in mind, when your policy renews, all the other factors are going into it. For instance, did your credit score change? Did you have a ticket? Did you have an accident? Did you add a young driver? Did you lose a young driver? Did you get over a certain age or under a certain age? So your renewal is going to renew with all those factors in it. Then this PIP reduction in MCCA would also apply. But if you have a June renewal, like the earlier question was, this is why you might want to inquire about taking a January renewal, because maybe this MCCA reduction in this PIP unlimited of 10%, even if you kept all the same coverage, may be worthwhile renewing early and taking advantage of those savings and not waiting until your next year's renewal. So here's the question. How much car insurance do you need under the new law? Well, that's a mystery. So let's just look at things to think about. What should we be thinking about? First of all, do you have other health insurance? So if you have a Blue Cross or Medicare, well, that means you could possibly opt out. Do you have a disability or long-term care insurance? If you go to a nursing care, maybe you already have a long-term care policy that's going to pay those bills. So the auto, you're not relying on the auto to pay your nursing care. So maybe that's not as big a deal for you. So some things to think about. Does your health insurance qualify as qualified health care coverage? So the earlier question, will my health insurance pay in the case of an auto accident? You need to know that to determine what options you really have available. Or do I want to pick a $500,000 option if my medical carrier is not going to pay for my auto accidents? Well, probably not. How much will you save by lowering or even eliminating your PIP coverage? And how important are those savings to you? So if you're going to save $100, maybe you're going to keep unlimited medical. If you're going to save $1,000, maybe you're going to want to opt out entirely. Can you afford your copays and deductibles? With your medical under the auto, there's no copays, no deductibles. You get hurt in an auto accident, the auto insurance company pays, you don't have to worry about it. If you opt out, now you're going to rely on your own medical coverage. If you have a $6,000 deductible or a high deductible plan, maybe you can't afford those deductibles. You'd rather pay as you go by continuing with the unlimited under your auto. And then the last thing is, how do you feel about the risk of an auto injury versus other health events? So I mentioned this earlier. What's the chances of you getting in an auto accident versus having a stroke or falling down the stairs or having your appendix burst or whatever other things may happen to you? You know, the auto is just one more way to get injured. You can get injured or have an illness a lot of other ways. So don't get all focused on the auto is the only way that bad things happen to me. A lot of ways bad things happen to us, and we accept our Blue Cross or our Medicare as the sole remedy for those injuries or those illnesses, and we seem comfortable with that. So there's a balance in our thinking. And if you remember that original slide I showed you, Michigan has unlimited medical, but all those other states don't. The state of Florida has $10,000 in medical coverage. All those older people live there. There's plenty of car accidents in Florida. And I haven't read in the news that this $10,000 of medical coverage is a big crisis they're having in Florida. So again, you want to balance how much am I going to save, what's my insurance coverage going to be, and what do I want to do? Last thing is this attendant care. We talked about nursing care. That's what attendant care is nursing care. You can buy an extra limit for that when you talk to your agent. So when you talk to your agent about reducing your coverage, say the 500,000 or the 250, you can always look at purchasing extra attendant care. Ask your agent to review the options to make an informed decision. Okay, the next thing, I'm going to go on to the next area. So before I do that, let's go back and answer any questions we have on this section. This is the meat of the whole thing, by the way, so it gets less confusing as we go along. Sue, do we have any questions? No?
Yeah, I have one. This is Doug.
Yeah.
In the original slide, one of the early ones, you compared Ohio to Michigan, and you showed something like 2,600 in Michigan and 1,000 in Michigan. And this doesn't sound like it would save that big difference.
So some of this, and some of this is based on averages. And some of this is based on data they put together. So for instance, in the state of Michigan, the city of Detroit honestly, when I quote insurance policy in the city of Detroit, these people are paying $5,000-$6,000 for one vehicle for 1 year. So they're skewing our overall prices really high. In Alpena, most of us aren't paying $1,000 for an individual vehicle. So the slide was a little generic in that sense. But you're right. You have to look at it, item by item by item. So I can't answer. I mean, again, we're pulling a slide off. It's kind of a generic for representation purposes, but I'm not sure the details would always match up exactly that easily.
So Steve, Pete, we've got another question on chat. If you have long-term care insurance, does PIP get exhausted first?
So yes, it would.
Okay.
As far as my understanding goes, so if you got injured in an auto accident right now, you have unlimited medical. So if you end up in nursing care, your long-term care policy is never going to get accessed because the auto is going to pay 100% of the bills, and there's no limitations. So the long-term care policy would have nothing to pay for. If we go to a situation where you say pick the $500,000 limit, we're going to exhaust that $500,000 first. Then you would turn it into your long-term care payer to pay it beyond that, because the auto at the $500,000 is going to pay whatever your monthly bill is. So let's say your bill could be $8,500 a month. Most long-term care policies don't have those high limits. Most people have picked a limit of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 and are going to be short by the time they actually utilize the policy. So the auto would pay first.
Okay. I've got another question here on chat, and this one is, will this change increase our options for insurance carriers from other states?
I don't know about that because they created this, they've created an environment that's very confusing. No other state asks you all these questions, whether you have qualified health care coverage, if you're on Medicare or Medicaid, they don't care. You pick a PIP limit of $10,000, you pay the premium, and then you're on your own after that. So this has created an environment that's very confusing. And number two, this unlimited medical is still a component you can pick. And chances are, at least for the next year or two, a lot of people are going to stick with unlimited because nobody likes change and it makes us nervous. I think over time, we're going to see unlimited become less and less because people are going to want to save the money. But initially, most of us are saving money just even to stay unlimited. And saving money is great. I don't need to save a ton. But I don't think we're going to see that. The auto insurance market is very competitive in the state of Michigan. It really is. So there's a lot of carriers, but you're right. Like Geico doesn't hardly write anything in the state of Michigan. And there's a few others that have left, like the Hartford left and some others over the years.
I think that covers what I have in the chat. Oh, wait a minute, I've got one more. If you stay with unlimited, does that affect the MCCA savings?
No, so you're going to get those savings. So even if you want to stay unlimited, that's why, let's say I want to stay unlimited because I'm comfortable with unlimited. This other stuff makes me nervous, but I don't want to wait till June to get my savings. You can call your agent and have them write the policy early and you can get your savings early. However, I'm going to caution you, your policy renews in June. When they go to rewrite it in July 2nd, all their new rates in July for collision or if you had a ticket or whatever else that might be out there could affect the premium. So the premium might not be, the base premium might not be exactly the same. So you have to ask them, if I renew early, is the savings worth it?
Okay.
We've been doing a lot of those. And I'll just tell you right now, as we get closer to July, this is going to heat up and heat up. And what's going to happen is your agent's going to be on the phone all day, every day. So if you want to do something, best bet, call early before you beat the rush.
I've got another question just came in too. Are they correct to think that a long-term insurance policy usually stipulates a specific upper limit for coverage per day? Does that affect the feasibility of using the LTC to cover the cost?
Well, I mean, that policy is going to pay what that policy pays. So most long-term care policies have a cap on how much they're going to pay per month or day, and a cap on how long they're going to pay. 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, typically. So when you look at your long-term care policy and you decide, okay, I'm going to choose either to opt out of my auto or choose a lower limit on my auto because I have a long-term care policy, just keep in mind, you got to live with whatever that selection is. So the long-term care policy doesn't care how you got to the nursing home. They don't care how you got there. They're only going to pay so much money, and that doesn't change.
Okay. All right, great. I think that covers the chat questions. So we have any other questions that anyone wants to ask? Okay. All right, Pete, I think we can move forward.
All right, I'm gonna that's kind of the big stuff, but here's another important section. And someone asked me this question earlier, and now we're going to talk about this change in priority and what does that mean. So your medical coverage applies in priority order. In other words, when someone's injured in an auto accident, there's a list. First, this pays, then this pays, then this pays, then this pays. And once you reach the first policy that applies, they don't go down lower. So if the first person or the first list on the priority list says it has a $250,000 limit, it doesn't matter if there's something further down the list that's got an unlimited coverage. It doesn't go any further. It stops. Just something to keep in mind. There's a list of who pays first and who pays second and who pays third. And as soon as they find the person that's supposed to pay, it stops. It doesn't go any further. So this is the important point. Only the named insured on the policy and a resident relative of the named insured are going to be covered by that auto policy. That's it. The named insured, who is the people's names on the front page, so usually it's Pete and Lynn Wilson, are the named insureds, and then any resident relatives in that household. So my wife and I, and if I had a child that was still living at home, they're a resident relative, they're covered by this auto policy. But if my neighbor's kid is living with me, he's not going to get covered by my auto policy. So if the four of us are in an auto accident and he's injured, my auto policy is not paying because he's not a named insured on my policy and he's not a resident relative. However, in that scenario, we would go, the next stage would be, oh, well, what about Johnny's mom and dad? Well, but is Johnny now a resident of my household? In other words, does he really live there or is he just there for the night? Okay. If he's just was visiting, then we would go to his mom and dad's policy because mom and dad have a policy. He's a live-in resident relative of that household. They would pay. Their auto policy would pay for his injuries even though he was in my car. Okay? So the only people that are going to get money from your auto policy are named insureds and live-in relatives. So what does that mean? Well, drivers or passengers that are not a named insured or a resident relative of the named insured with an auto policy are going to be limited at $250,000 in coverage. So let's say the circumstance with Johnny in my household. He's not a live-in relative of mine. He lives in my household. He's been there for a year now. We're taking care of him. He's not a live-in relative of mom and dad. The only medical benefits he's going to get is from the state of Michigan, Michigan Assigned Claims Plan, $250,000. Why is that important? The big question, this applies to young adults driving a parent's car who live on their own, or a live-in boyfriend, girlfriend who's furnished a car but not named as a named insured. So what do I mean? My daughter turns 20. She gets a job in Lansing. Sure, take your car. I'll keep it on my auto policy. I'll give you a deal so you don't have to worry about it. Right now, with the order of priority, she would be covered. But after July 2nd, she's not a named insured on my auto policy. She's not a resident of my household. Even though she's driving my car, she's going to be limited to that $250,000 from the Michigan Associated Claims Plan. Same situation. Boyfriend, girlfriend. Girlfriend owns both cars. She lets the boyfriend drive the one car. She's insured the both cars. She's insured them. He's not a named insured on her policy. He's not a named insured. He's not a relative who lives in the household, so he's not going to get PIP coverage from her auto policy. The only people that are going to get coverage from her auto policy, named insured, live-in relatives. So if you've got a situation where you have someone, you're letting somebody use your car and they don't live with you, or if they do live with you but they're not a relative, this auto policy is not going to pay their PIP coverage. So we've got situations, where this has occurred over the years, and we're trying to sort through them to tell people that we need to change how their policy is set up so that these people have coverage. Ask your agent if you have these circumstances. So one of the things people are going to be talking a lot about, what about college students? Where do they fit into the picture? If they're not returning home each summer, they may not be considered a resident of the household any longer, and the auto's PIP would not apply. The driver's license address is not the only consideration. So what are we talking about? My daughter graduates from high school. She goes to college. She's living in the dorm. She's going to come home this summer and live at home and work at McDonald's, go back to school the next year and live at the dorm. She's a resident of my household. That's pretty obvious. But my older daughter has her own apartment in East Lansing, and she works all summer there, or she's interning somewhere. She's not coming back in the summer anymore. She's going to live there. She's got an annual lease. She gets her power bill there, that sort of thing. The question, is this kid a resident of my household anymore, or are they a resident of their own household? The driver's license address is not the only consideration. It's really important. Just because you have their address at your house, but if they're living in Ann Arbor or up in Marquette, and they're staying the summers and they're not coming home anymore, and they're going to graduate from college and then they're going to move to Seattle to go to work, they're not a resident of your household anymore. That's a gray area, something to really people have to think about now. There's a couple exceptions to the change of priorities, and I'll just touch on these. If you're driving an employer's auto, that pays your medical bills, not your own auto. So for instance, myself, Alpena Agency furnishes me a truck. If I get in an accident this afternoon, I'm going to get workers' comp because I'm at work. But when I go home this weekend and I drive my car and get in an accident, Alpena Agency's PIP portion of the auto policy is going to pay, not Pete and Lynn's auto policy. Changing, that's order of priority. As soon as I reach the top of whoever the first list on that priority pays first before we go anywhere else. If you're in an Uber, if you're in a taxi, they pay. If you're on a motorcycle, it's the other driver's car that pays first. There's other rules. Okay, is there any questions on the priority situation?
Hi,
Okay.
it's Pam again. I have a question then. I know occasionally I travel with somebody else and we switch off drivers. Obviously, we would either be in my car or that person's car. So we would have to consider possibly something different with insurance for that time period that we would be traveling to make sure we had the coverage we wanted?
No, not at all. So, and maybe I wasn't clear, but the idea is, so you have an auto policy that you're the named insured on. That policy is going to follow you everywhere. So whether you're riding in your friend's car, whether you're driving your friend's car, or whether you're walking down the street, if you are in an auto accident, hit by a car, or as a passenger, or as a driver, that policy is going to protect you all the time because you are named insured on that policy. And it's also going to protect your live-in relatives all the time, whether they're a passenger on a vehicle, on another car, or a pedestrian. So the key is that auto policy is going to protect the named insured and all live-in relatives all the time, no matter where they go or what they do if they're in an auto accident.
Okay, but it wouldn't be covering somebody else in my vehicle who didn't live with
Correct.
me. They'd have to have their own insurance. Okay.
They have to have their own. Or, and we're going to talk about this next section, So I'm riding in your vehicle and you decide to text your friend and crash into a tree, and now I'm really injured and I want to sue you. That's a different element. My personal injuries may be protected by my auto policy if I have one. I may have opted out, but let's just say I picked a low limit, I don't have any other coverage, and now I use up my $250,000 and I'm hurt really bad and I want more money. I'm going to sue you. And your PIP coverage doesn't pay me, your bodily injury pays me, your liability, which is what we're going to talk about right now. So the bodily injury is that they've increased the statutory state minimum. Most of you are familiar that originally it was $20,000 per accident, $40,000 per person. Most of you on this phone call probably have $100,000 per person, $300,000 per accident. That's pretty common. All that coverage is for is when you injure someone, if they're a passenger, you hit someone on the street, you get in another car accident, you injure these other people in the other car, and they want to sue you because they've got excess lost wage or their medical coverage isn't big enough anymore because they chose a really low limit, then your BI, bodily injury, is going to pay. So going forward, your policies are going to renew with $250,000, $500,000 limit automatically. If you've got 100, 300 right now, when your policy renews after July 2nd or after July 1st, starting July 2nd, you're going to automatically have 250, 500,000, unless you sign a form that says you want a lower limit, and you can go as low as 50, 100. So a lot of people have 100, 300. If you have 100, 300, it's going to automatically go to 250, 500. If you don't want 250, 500, you have to sign a form to keep it at 100, 300. The current $220,000 per person, $40,000 per accident limit is gone. But for those of you got to think about this, there's a bigger chance you're going to get sued following an auto accident starting July 2nd than there is today. Right now, 100% of the people have unlimited medical. So the one thing I'm not going to sue you for is to pay my unpaid medical bills. Starting July 2nd, I may have unpaid medical bills, and I'm going to be looking for money, and I'm going to be suing people to get it. And you're going to want to make sure you have a high enough bodily injury limit or an umbrella policy in addition to protect yourself on that. We're almost to the end here.
Right, and I've got one question. The question is, person has a son who lives in downtown Chicago, doesn't own a car, hence has no car insurance. If he comes home and drives our car and gets into an accident, what happens?
He's not a living relative.
Correct.
Therefore, your auto policy is not going to pay him any medical benefits. So the only medical he's going to have is his Blue Cross or whatever he has through work, because even the state of Michigan, and I'm going to go on this list that this is the last wrap up of these other changes, non-Michigan residents are not going to get any PIP benefits from the state of Michigan. So you may have noticed I mentioned earlier about this $250,000. If you're a resident of the state of Michigan, but you don't have an auto policy and you're injured in an auto accident, you're not a living relative of somebody, you're not a named insured of somebody, the state of Michigan still has $250,000 available to pay you. But if you're not a Michigan resident, you're getting nothing. So he is 100% reliant upon either A, going to his own private medical insurance, or B, suing somebody for the benefit, meaning either he sues the at-fault driver or he could sue the car owner if he can somehow claim the car was faulty or something. So let me go over.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. I just was going to say we don't have any other questions on chat. So.
But I do.
Okay.
How will this affect? Sometimes when my daughter comes home, they rent a car. How will insurance, and she's from another state, how does that affect car rental and insurance?
Yeah, you may have stumped me on that one because I haven't thought about that one. I don't think the rental car coverage, I gotta have to think about that. Does the rental car in the state of Michigan have to provide PIP benefits to its passengers and users? My guess is it does, and they'll be able to pick some limit. But I'm sorry, I don't know that answer.
So they would need to get Michigan insurance on the rental car, though, is what you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm thinking they would pay for that extra.
So it wouldn't be covered by their own insurance.
No, because Michigan's the only, well, so let's say they're in the state of New Jersey, and New Jersey has a $250,000 PIP limit. I'm sure that policy follows them, and they would get $250 in Michigan if they rent a car. But most states have, like 33 states have zero, nothing. So my daughter lives in Seattle. She has an auto policy in Seattle. She gets no PIP coverage from her auto policy. If she gets in an auto accident, she's 100% going to Blue Cross. That's it. So if she comes to Alpena and drives my car, she's got no medical coverage other than her Blue Cross from Seattle. My car's not going to pay her anything.
Well, that's where my daughter is too.
So, and again, but she could come to Alpena and, fall down the stairs, or she could come to Alpena and have her appendix burst. I mean, chances are, if she needs to go to the hospital while she's in Alpena, it'll probably be something other than an auto accident. So, I mean, you got to, again, you're trying to balance, like, I don't want to sit here and scare you all into buying unlimited medical insurance on auto, even though, guess what, I might make more money that way. That's not my point. My point is to try to give you a balance that says you're walking around day to day completely comfortable that if you have something happen to you, your Medicare or your Blue Cross is going to pay your bills. What makes auto so special? Why does that injury need to be looked at differently? Well, if you do get in a serious car accident, I mean, they can rack up some big bills. So there's a concern there, but it's got to be balanced, just balanced. Let me go over these last few points. I just mentioned out-of-state drivers and non-Michigan residents are not receiving any PIP benefits. And if you think about this, one of the things that was happening to us, some guy lives in Ohio, buys an Ohio auto policy for $1,000. He works in Monroe, so he drives to Monroe every day to go to work. Gets in a car accident in Michigan. He gets unlimited medical benefits right now, even though he paid nothing into the system. So we're paying for these non-Michigan residents who get injured in Michigan unlimited medical benefits, and yet they've paid nothing into our system. Meanwhile, when we go to their state, the only way we're covered by medical benefits is from our own policy too. So the state of Michigan was paying for a lot of people's medical benefits that weren't helping by putting money in the pot. Uninsured drivers of automobiles that require a Michigan auto policy will not receive any PIP benefits. We've heard a lot about these uninsured drivers. The frustrating part is this guy doesn't buy insurance, gets in an auto accident, and my auto policy still pays for his medical benefits, even though he chose not to buy insurance. So I'm paying double for him and for me. They've eliminated that. This mini tort thing. Right now in the state of Michigan, if you get in a car accident and you damage the other guy's vehicle and he doesn't have insurance, he doesn't have collision insurance, you could be liable up to $1,000. That's going to $3,000. So now you could be liable for someone else's auto damage for up to $3,000, or they could be liable to yours up to $3,000 instead of $1,000. That's just something they changed, not a big deal. Rating factors. They made a big deal about this. Your auto policy can no longer be based on gender, marital status, home ownership, education level, occupation, postal code, or credit score. Well, some of this is semantics. If I'm going to rate your policy, I can't use postal code, but I can use some other territorial code. So everyone in Alpena County is going to pay X rate instead of everyone in 49707. Is that a difference? Not really. You can't use credit score. Well, insurance companies don't use credit score. They use insurance score, and they can still do that. So insurance scoring and credit scoring are very similar. They use a lot of the same factors between the two. But insurance scoring is insurance scoring, and credit scoring is credit scoring, and they can still use insurance score. So the news has kind of made a big deal out of this. It's not that big a deal. People who have failed to maintain car insurance are going to be eligible to buy a regular standard auto policy for up to 18 months. This provision was really to try to capture these people that are uninsured or haven't purchased auto insurance. And now And the reason they haven't bought it is because it's so expensive in the state of Michigan. Well, now we've implemented all these changes to make it more affordable, and we're going to open it up to those people who hadn't been buying it in the past so that they can jump in at regular pricing. Businesses. I talked earlier about that order of priority. Businesses are going to be able to choose different PIP limits. So for instance, Alpena Agency is going to be able to have unlimited PIP for my automobiles, 500,000 or 250,000 PIP benefits. So Pete Wilson, who's going to drive an Alpena Agency vehicle on the weekends, if Alpena Agency chooses to only have $500,000 in medical benefits on that auto, that's all Pete Wilson can get, or my family if we're injured in that auto accident. That's a company vehicle. So if you're driving a company vehicle, when you drive it on your own time, you're dependent upon whatever PIP benefits that business picked for that auto, or you're going back to your Blue Cross or Medicare or whatever other coverage you have. Okay, contact your agent early because we're expecting a lot of calls, and we're trying to call people now to get this out of the way because there's going to be just, as this gets closer and closer and closer, more and more people are going to be calling. Make sure you ask your agent your questions and make sure you consider your options. You can save money, but the coverage is changing. That is it. This is I just put this up here because it's a summary of the changes, which, like I said, was kind of the meat of this whole thing. So I'm open to answer some more questions.
Okay, we've got one chat question, and that says the coverage of a business vehicle overrides the coverage that you may personally have?
Correct. So when I look at the order of priority, number 1 says if it's a commercial vehicle, number 1, the business. Number 2 is your personal auto. But as soon as we get to that first priority that applies, the business, we stop. So let's say Lynn and I, we're nervous about all this. We want the unlimited medical. So for our auto policy, we pick unlimited medical. Great. Problem is, we're driving Pete's pickup truck, which is owned by Alpena Agency and insured by Alpena Agency. So when we drive out of town, my PIP benefit and my wife's PIP benefit is going to be limited to the $500,000 if that's what Alpena Agency picked. Even though her and I picked unlimited, doesn't matter. Doesn't ever come into play. It's going to be limited totally by that business's choice, which they can go down to 250. Unlimited, 500, or 250. And I can tell you right now, these businesses have been paying a ton of money in MCCA fees and PIP fees for years on these auto policies. So they have an auto policy with 25 vehicles on it, all right? Only 2 of those vehicles are ever driven at home. The other 23 sit in the shop every weekend, and anyone who drives them is covered by work comp. But they have to pay MCCA on all 25 of those, so they're paying $5,000 or $10,000 in MCCA fees that they'll never use. So a lot of them are going to be dropping this down.
So should we wrap this up, Pete? Are we at the end?
I'm at the end, yes.
Okay, all right. So Pete's at the end. Do we have any questions before we? Okay. Well, I want to just thank Pete for his time and great explanation of a very complicated subject. And thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to help us. And I think everybody will agree that they've gotten a lot of good information out of this.
Yeah,
Well, I hope so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, all right. If you can leave the meeting now as you would like, and we'll start to see people pop off here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan, for coordinating this, and thank you, Pete, for a great session.
Oh,
This
you're
is our
welcome.
team.
Yeah, I think it was an excellent session.
Good session, Pete.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Pete, thanks again. We'll go ahead and end the meeting and leave the Zoom. So we just really appreciate your time.